In terms of the immediate future, though, and this run coming up, I mean, you're looking at the games. The good thing is to say there's no international break. Well, I suppose AFCON obviously comes in January, but no full international break till March. It just feels like if Liverpool are going to do anything this season, this run coming up, especially the way through till New Year, it's got to be a good one, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think there's pressure on this run now because, I mean, as much as you can kind of say, I think they had a really tough start to the season in terms of the fixtures, an awful lot of really tough away games in there, settling new players in, everything else they kind of had to deal with and not being quite there. I don't think there were many in this run where if they had suffered defeat, you'd be able to kind of make excuses for them or come up with reasons, because there's a lot of very, very winnable fixtures in here. And I think we saw against Villa and Real Madrid that this team can start to play now. It kind of a lot went out the window against Man City, but also you can say kind of was it a 3-0 and maybe a little bit unlucky in some of the moments, as poor as they were in the performance as well, by the way. Could they have got away with that one a little bit more maybe? So, yeah, I think this run, they've got to play well. They've got to pick up more points. And I think if they do that and we start to see more, you'll be a lot more encouraged about where this whole project's going in the future. But also, I just think they'll be so comfortably in third at the very least if they win a lot of these games. Then, any suggestion that this is a top 4 battle or anything like that, I think will be, put to one side, really, if they're able to play convincingly. But I think more than anything, I just want to see a consistent run of 9 decent performances here. I know they're not going to be perfect in every game. I know they're probably not going to win 9 from 9, but let's just see a run of good performances. And if you do that, you'll win the majority of the games, and your position in the Champions League, position in the Premier League will look a lot healthier. So, I just want to see them play well, really.
Yeah, it would be. The results play well. Like you said, probably there's no excuses for this run coming up. And I mean, even shorter term, you look just at this week coming up alone, they've got, obviously, the game against Forest on Saturday, then PSV at home. So 2 at home followed by West Ham away. But it's important to say, you should be beating PSV in the Champions League. And those 2 league games, I know one's away, but it's against 18th and 19th. It's fair to say it's right to expect 9 from 9 across the competitions from this one.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like one of the things I was talking about with the fixture list being difficult as well, I think they played 1 of the bottom 6 so far. Yeah. And a lot of teams around them have had a lot more of those games. So, but then you've got to get to these games and you've got to make it pay, and you've got to get it right. So there's a pressure there in that you can point to your fixture list and say, oh, it's been really difficult. We've got to, we want to do better, but it's been hard for us because we've had to go to Palace away, we've had to go to Chelsea away, we've had to go to City away, all these things. But then when you get those kind of games coming around, make it happen, make it pay, and get the results over the line. And PSV, one of your weaker Champions League opponents, you've got to make that you get the win there. I don't want to be saying, well, I weren't the unlucky that actually Forest changed the manager and it's Sean Dyche and he made them organised, or West Ham had Nuno in and that had completely changed the way that game looked. These teams are low on confidence and they aren't playing very well at the moment. So just do better. Just go there and show what you're all about. So I think there's pressure on it for Liverpool. They have to make it happen, and if they do, I think things will look a lot healthier.
Yeah, you're right. There's pressure about it for the players, but especially with this run, I mean, you've always been adamant that there'll be no real pressure on Arne Slot whilst he's in that Champions League sort of picture or those runs. So he can't have a run he's had recently with these fixtures, otherwise the pressure will ramp up on him, won't it?
Yeah, because I mean they're 8th at the moment, but they're 2 points off 3rd, aren't they? So I mean that's absolutely. It's nothing, isn't it? You win kind of 3 games on the bounce and you're comfortably in the top 4. But you have to do it. So, I think if you do start losing some of these games, you're losing to Nottingham Forest at home. And I know they got caught by surprise last season in that game a little bit. It just kind of was what it was, and Forest were very good. But if you lose that game this time around, I think, you start to go, well, what is this season going to turn into? Is this going to turn into finishing 8th or something like that? So, start winning these winnable games and just make sure Champions League is not in question. And I think for Arne Slot, then he buys himself time. And what you want to do here is you want to comfortably qualify for the Champions League. Maybe you want to have a little crack at it because Liverpool are playing well in it. The physical problems aren't being exposed there, and end the season strongly, really. So, but give yourself a platform to do it by performing well in these games, I think.
Yeah, it's got to happen. And I mean, in terms of the no excuse that we talked about, as far as we know from the injury picture, Alisson should be back possibly at any point, maybe even ready for Forest. Frimpong a little longer, but Frimpong's really, as long as, touch wood, the international break's good, the only real known absentee, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right. So, Alisson expected straight back, and then Frimpong just maybe a couple of games after that. But, we're closing in on a fully fit squad, which, was one of Liverpool's strengths last season, that they kept players fit. And again, one of the kind of small mitigating factors they've had at the start of this season is that they've had a few injuries and quite different to last season in that sense. So, but again, if that's clearing up, it's one less excuse to lean on. It's something that you've got to use. So, let's hope that Liverpool can do that. And of course, Leone being out is a bit of a blow, but he would have been primarily featuring in the League Cup anyway. So, Liverpool are getting close to a fully fit squad, and so should be able to manage their way through these games and as we said, the winnable games as well.
Definitely are. And you probably clocked this article. It was a great one by Michael Reed, but it was a bit of a horror read, in all honesty, at the same time, pardon the pun there. So about long passes, pressing, possession, set plays, away form, which in summary has been pretty horrendous across the board, especially in recent times. I mean, as far as we know, Arne Slot's not gone to Dubai, Ibiza, or anything like that. He's been at, Anfield, working at things at the AXA. What do you think he will have trying to been looking at? What are you almost expecting or hoping to see when we come back?
When you consider it's kind of these lower teams that Liverpool are going to be facing, of course, the flip side of that is that they probably, a lot of them will play a brand of football that Liverpool will be quite uncomfortable with, to be honest. Yeah. So that's going to make things really difficult for them. So, you've got to work on all those things that are mentioned. I thought the piece was really interesting. I think Michael's stuff's great. And but yeah, is dealing with long balls, dealing with the second balls off those. Because Liverpool's aerial win rate, by the way, is very, very high in comparison to other Premier League teams. I think they might actually have the best aerial win rate in the Premier League this season. But it's where that ball's dropping and when it drops, whether they win it. So you've got to start winning those. So I think that's the way, Liverpool have got to get better at that. I think second balls is just a massive, massive factor for them this season. So I think that's getting players close around your centre-halves when they're winning the ball, getting your midfielders close to them to kind of pick up the scraps. Just being kind of organised in that, because I do think there's a physicality issue for Liverpool there in terms of covering ground and getting there to win the second ball. But also you can just be a bit smarter about it and position your players closer when the long ball's being played. You've just got to acknowledge that press and being front-footed and pushing onto them, it's not going to work for you in a game where they're not asked about being pressed and they're just going to boot the ball along anyway. Yeah. So rather than kind of pushing your 2 of your 3 midfielders on to kind of lock on to midfielders who are never going to receive the ball anyway, just maybe drop them off a little bit, get them close to the centre halves, create your relationships there and make sure they're there to clean up. That's maybe something we have to see. One thing I would say, though, by the way, on kind of tactical concerns, and seeing a lot of this is kind of people saying, they look at tactics and say, oh, well, this is disastrous and this is disastrous. And these are all the problems that Liverpool have got. And they have so many tactical issues. But what I would point to is kind of a lot of the time is don't maybe go over the top in kind of assessing, well, why have you got all these tactical issues? What is the manager doing? Why aren't these things being fixed? It's like, if you went back and watched Man City last season, you could point, or you watched Arsenal last season, you would find all these tactical issues, all these tactical problems that you think, well, again, why is the manager not solving them? Well, so many of the problems get solved by personnel. It's you can point out to these tactical issues that are consistently coming up. Well, they were for Arsenal last season. That's why they were losing loads of games. They were for City last season. That's why they were losing loads of games. So are we saying that last season Pep Guardiola and Mikel Arteta were poor managers? And are we saying now this season that Arne Slot, because he's got these tactical issues that he's not dealing with seemingly, he is a poor manager? The thing is that like kind of you can go through games and seasons where you've got a tactical issue, but nobody really exposes it that well, or they might expose it a couple of times, but you keep the ball so well that it's not a problem, or you score the goals in key moments in games because Isak is fit and firing, and therefore because basically there's no perfect tactic out there. So I think we're kind of going too deep into it sometimes in terms of saying how bad Liverpool are, and they have been poor this season, don't get me wrong. But it's we talk about it sometimes like it's always a fixable problem. And sometimes it's just about having better players than the opposition, and that helps you through a lot of the time. And I don't think, with Liverpool, sometimes you could say, oh, well, they should have better players on the pitch, but they've not got a Wirtz who's performing at his full potential. They've not got an Isak who's anywhere near his potential either. And, sometimes it's just about the players. And I think if Liverpool can get the rhythm going a little bit, and they can get more from Kerkez as well, and Wirtz and Isak, a lot of these tactical problems that we're seeing will kind of just evaporate along with that. What I'm saying is kind of don't get sucked into the idea that this is a manager problem and the manager's doing this wrong and he could just fix this problem. It's like Pep couldn't fix City's problems last season for large parts of it. I know someone's saying there he spent 200 million in January and got better. I don't think they got much better, to be honest, after January. I was still kind of saying at that point, they've still got massive weaknesses here, but they seem to have solved a lot of them now. And they kind of seem to be hitting a rhythm now, don't they? Outside of the problem with nobody else but Haaland scoring goals. So I think personnel can help is what I'm saying. And a lot of these problems they're not unfixable, or they might not even need to be fixed. They might get covered up by other areas, because that's kind of what football is sometimes. Football is generally, and this phrase only gets used as a negative, but I always think this is the sport in summary, really, is papering over the cracks, because you will always have cracks in your team. And it's about trying to cover those up as much as you can, really, and make yourself a functional football team.
Is there a way, and I never want to compare us directly to us, but we do feel a bit like City last season. City were well off the top, but you knew they were going to finish third or fourth. You knew they were going to qualify because of quality they had, but they had their stars maybe coming to an end and not shining, like De Bruyne. Haaland was off it for a while, like we're kind of seeing a bit with Salah and others, but that there was gaps in midfield, whereas we've got issues with the physicality. It's kind of just like that. You'd probably expect us to still finish in the top four, of course, but then it is going to probably be cash and personnel longer term to do it.
Yeah, this is it. I think the main difference to say is that City were probably a little bit more like that, the Jurgen Klopp season where Liverpool ended up finishing fifth, in that they had, like you say, the kind of aging stars, and you knew that the only fix to that really was to get to the summer and kind of sort it out. Whereas for Liverpool, I think there's improvement here that I want to see within the season, because I think there's potential for it there. I mean, if this is the level that Kerkez plays at for his Liverpool career, I mean, what a bad signing that has been.
Yeah.
Very much the same for Isak, the same for Wirtz. And I just don't believe that all three are going to be bad signings in that way. So I think there are improvements to come from them. And then, of course, the improvements to come from the collective when they start to gel a little bit more. So I want to see Liverpool have a very strong finish to this season. And I will be... that's what I need to be kind of encouraged. But in the meantime, we are still going to see some issues and them working that out. And I think that puts a kind of cap on where they can finish. Of course, the points gap also does as well. So it's all about that kind of, But I think there are improvements, and I think that's the difference, is that I think Liverpool can finish stronger than City did last season, and then look to kind of fix the last couple of problems then in the market, and then hopefully, be right back up there.
I mean, we can only do so much, and there's January in the summer. I suppose in the immediate future, and it's the Forest game, obviously, on Saturday, there's now going to be decisions to be made, because you hope Isak obviously comes back fit, all midfielders, Curtis Jones is available, Alisson, you expect to go straight back in. How are you seeing the Forest starting lineup? Touch wood, provided everyone comes back okay.
It's really, really tough decision to make here, because I think that Wirtz on the left-hand side kind of brought a real balance, didn't we? Kind of liked it. It didn't look great in City, but I just think you almost have to write the City game off. It was so bad, and City were much better there. That you almost have to ignore that. But it's like, is it better against a Forest to have a goal-scoring winger who's going to kind of run in behind in Gakpo? It probably is. But then, so what do you do with Florian Wirtz? You probably don't want to put him back in central midfield where he's being bullied a little bit. So, some really tough decisions to make for the manager, and honestly, ones that I find hard to call myself. Really, it's I think it's a really difficult one.
It is tough. You do think that at some point, I suppose, he's going to have to work out what is his best side for this period, even if a star has to suffer or have some time on the bench. how do Liverpool look best? And I suppose the only one that it's being alluded to a lot, I would say, at the moment, is Liverpool's personnel and how they set up. Yes, they're short of centre-halves right now, but you've probably seen a lot of the talk that everything around Liverpool long-term suits a back three. And obviously, we know Arne Slot's never played it. It would be completely new for Liverpool as well. What are your thoughts on that as like potential and for the future and getting it, as people seem to allude to, and I get this, Verts behind Isak and Ekatike up top?
Yeah, it'd fix a lot of problems, really, wouldn't it? Particularly, as you say, when Salah's away, in terms of not having a kind of natural replacement for him, kind of covering off some of Kirkes's weaknesses that he's showing at the moment in terms of how involved in build-up he has to be, getting Frimpong in a more natural position whenever he's fit. Yeah. You could use Robertson left-sided centre-half, which is a position he's played for his country as well. So maybe that boosts your options there. They do just look one centre half short, don't they? But what the mix it would give you really is, it kind of looks like it would work a lot. But I don't know. I'd be surprised if the manager goes there. Really, I mean, I suppose he has done it. He did it in the League Cup, didn't he? Recently. So maybe it's something he's thinking about. But it's an interesting one. I wouldn't be against seeing it while Salah's at AFCON, because I think it would get a lot of your good players in the team, which is always a really good way of going about winning football games. But it's whether he's minded to kind of make that shift, and it does feel like a significant one, and it does leave you a little bit exposed in terms of further centre half injuries. But yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, I'd be intrigued to see it, because I think it would. It does feel like it would work, but whether the manager is ready for that kind of sweeping change and what that says about the squad he's built, and whether, would that really have been the idea all along? I'm not so convinced. I don't know. It's a fascinating one, I think.
Will be one to. Do you think, I suppose the final question on this, if another centre-half was to arrive in January, or defensive player, would that make you think they might have a go at this?
Yeah, maybe, but I kind of agree with the comment there, actually, that three at the back is not really a system you want to see with a top team that wants to dominate the ball in a certain way. I would lean towards that, if I'm honest. So, but obviously, if Slot goes down this route, then he obviously has seen a reason for it. If that's the squad they continue to build. But of course, they didn't go with Ruben Amorim because they felt that he would have been too big of a change and going to that three at the back, but then they've kind of accidentally ended up with a squad that really kind of suits it. So, but I don't feel like that's the aim, and I would be surprised if that ends up happening. Maybe we're just building this up in our minds because the results haven't been right at the moment, and the moment that Liverpool go on a consistent run, we probably stop talking about it. So, I feel like they're not going to, but. Equally, if he wants to try it in the FA Cup or anything, I wouldn't be against it, just to see how it worked out.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. There's a lot to watch for the summer. There's a lot to watch January, AFCON. There's a lot to watch in the immediate future.
To be fair, just on that, actually, but I mean, one of the things to think about, and this is a real possibility for AFCON, is to stick with four at the back and go with a diamond midfield and get all your width from your fullbacks. Now, whether that is something he's thinking about, to get Isak and Ekatike there, to get Wirtz at the point where he wants to operate. Now that's one to maybe keep an eye on, and I'll be really interested to see what comes around when AFCON's there.
They've got to do something, haven't they? It's got to change from the immediate future and what we've seen recently. But there we go, people. Touch wood. Everyone's coming back from internationals. There's still a few to keep an eye on. Contracts and transfers are starting to ramp up. It doesn't look like it's going to be mad busy in January. We'll have to see. And three at the back, four at the back, diamond in midfield. Let's just hope some tactic works in the immediate future. All it leaves me to say as ever is, for the time, the insight, and for answering every single question, David, it is massively appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.